Good afternoon, everybody. I'm happy to see so many people. My name is Herbert Blankenstein. I'm a radio journalist. I do a lot of IT stuff. I also write and have the honor to lead these customer success sessions. And I'll have a very distinguished guest for the next 45 minutes, all the way from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology comes Olu Brown.
Herbert,
Hi.
how's it going?
Please sit down. And he's come to talk to us about transforming IT to drive high-velocity innovation. And you're in charge of IT application programs, data science, and business intelligence. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a mouthful.
It is a mouthful, but all three of those programs are something that's really something that MIT is striving for. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to lead that effort.
Yeah. Could you tell me a bit about your department within MIT and what its role is?
Sure. So I work for the Information Services Department, and they're the core central IT for MIT. So we are about 350 people or so,
Wow, that's a lot.
serving roughly 25,000 people at MIT. About half of those are students.
Okay. And what exactly do you do for them?
Sure. So our main core business is serving a lot of administrative functions. We have the huge ERP systems, SAP, we use for finance and HR. We have a student system, so all admissions, financial aid, registration, all go through that system. That's actually where I started at MIT as a software architect for that system.
So it's not just science, but it's also the regular management
Yes.
stuff.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
so we host a lot of servers, cloud services for academic departments, most notably like the Artificial Intelligence Laboratory, the Media Laboratory. We actually host a lot of applications and the research that they do.
It's got to be very exciting stuff.
It is actually. I mean, I work with all of those different departments. As a former MIT grad.
Yes, you
it's-
used to be at MIT as a student, right?
Yeah, I studied computer science and management science at Sloan. So, coming back to MIT after about 10 years doing consulting was good because you see MIT from the other side, right? I never saw half the stuff as a student that I do now.
Okay, and did it surprise you what you found at your present
In some
department?
cases, yes.
Name something, please.
So, just looking at the core student system, how much effort that the registrar's office, the admissions office put into that final product, right? The only thing I saw as a student was pick 4 or 5 classes and I'm
Yeah,
done.
yeah.
But there's, a whole plethora of people behind just kind of making everything go.
The
And
easier it is for the user, the harder work the other side has to
yeah,
do,
that's
right?
my mantra. Make it easy on the user.
Okay, good. We'll keep that in mind. Now, there's this 2020 vision for IT at MIT.
Yeah.
It's a document that outlines what you're about to do in the next 5 years.
Yeah.
So what challenges are there?
So John Charles, who's the current CIO at MIT, kind of came in and established this 2020 vision after kind of listening to all of the different departments around MIT. And part of, if I can sum up the 2020 vision into kind of 2 points, one is IT excellence through modernization, and then enabling innovation, right? And so he wanted to kind of scope the IT department around those 2 things and be able to push out the good services to the MIT community.
Yeah. Okay. Now, you do part of this using Mendix.
Yes.
Which parts?
So, the application platform, so I originally started at MIT being responsible for data science. Because I have a software background, that my role kind of expanded to pick up application platforms as well.
Yeah.
At the time, we were just starting to use Mendix internally in IT just to kind of prove.
But I'd like to go back a bit more.
Yeah, go ahead.
How did you discover Mendix in the first place?
So actually,
Did you discover it personally, or
I
did
did not
somebody else?
discover it personally. It was actually there once I took over the team. But John
Yeah.
Charles, the CIO, he actually at a CIO event, I think met Derek, and that's how our Mendix kind of journey began. Right? He saw this as a good way, a good platform to potentially bring to MIT and kind of change the traditional software development model. Right? So we got a bunch of different developers trained in Mendix and started piloting some applications.
As far as you know, was there a demand in the first place to change the software development model, or did they find out only after discovering Mendix?
Oh, it was there before.
Yeah, things have to change.
Yeah, I
How
mean,
can
so
we do
again,
that?
the traditional software development model, you know, it's always focused around those core enterprise systems and
Yeah.
all of the ancillary kind of processes that need to happen around
What
it.
exactly was wrong with that?
It always ended up at the bottom of a list.
Okay.
Right? So we never actually got to it. And so people built their own homegrown things, whether that's in Microsoft Excel or, you know, a database, or hire a contractor in order to be able to build some of these
And what exactly
applications.
was the problem there? Programming taking too much time, or what?
Taking too much time, and, you know, all the ideas that were out there weren't being turned into solutions. So I'll give you an example of actually a project that I walked into once I became the lead for application platforms. There were about 6 or 7 academic departments around MIT who wanted to create an application for recording financial agreements between departments. So
Yeah.
they use that to do things like, if there's a new building that they're going to put up, normally the department doesn't put up all of the money, right? They work with several other departments who are potentially going to use their labs to kind of put money together. But right now, or at the time, they managed it all through email, right? So they came to the IT department and said, let's build an application. Sure enough, it was the, again, traditional development methodology. So we had 4 developers create an application in PHP. When I stepped into it, the project was 9 months into it.
Okay.
And it seemed like it was still at early stages.
Nothing there.
Nothing there. So I actually watched what they were doing for about 2 or 3 weeks. I knew Mendix was out there, and overnight I kind of played around with Mendix myself, and I think I basically replicated what they already had overnight.
Wow.
So I came back to team the next day and said, you guys did a lot of work for the past 9 months.
Thank you very much.
Let's just try something new real quick. Right?
How did they respond?
At the time, I think they were actually a little bit relieved because they had been spending a lot of time on this project.
Okay.
And it didn't seem like they were getting as much traction. So
They realized that was the case.
yeah.
Yeah,
And so we
okay.
tried out Mendix, and I think within like the first 2 weeks, they realized like they had already brought their code base up to where we already were. Now, I will also say we probably benefited as well from already having like a data model in existence that we could kind of use and move to Mendix. But you know, now we have an application deployed. It took us probably about 2 months to build the full application. We have integration with, you know, our people directory, and we're starting to build integration with SAP now for record. Actually, once we agree to a financial agreement, that we can actually start recording it in SAP as well.
Yeah.
And so 9 months to 3 months, and actually having a lot more functionality within the application during those 3 months was huge.
Right. And the stuff you mentioned just now about students ticking boxes which classes they want to attend, is that also done in Mendix now?
So we do have well, there's components of it, right? So the
Okay.
registrar's office still has a lot of PDF forms that people kind of fill out, print out, and hand in, but we're starting to actually consume a lot of those forms. So we have 2 forms right now that we've created Mendix applications for, and so we've integrated it into the registrar's process.
Yeah. Did you realize back then that Mendix was a Dutch product? Did you even consider it to be because you could also say Mendix is in over there in the States as well, so it's
To be honest,
an American company.
I never even really thought about it. I mean, we use, MIT uses a lot of applications and platforms, and you know, we have a lot of international companies that we've brought in, and so Mendix was another one, you know, and then it's good to hear that we have applications all over the place.
Yeah. You're working with scientists too. Could you name 1 or 2 projects that you do with scientists using Mendix?
Sure. So I would say the big one is MIT Nano Laboratory.
Again, please.
MIT Nano Laboratory.
Nanolab. Okay.
So nanotechnology.
Yeah.
They're actually creating a new lab that's scheduled to go live in 2018, and MIT
Okay.
spending probably $300 million to create this new, I say laboratory, but it actually probably has 10 laboratories within the building. And so we're actually using Mendix. I think primarily the initial response was around lab management,
Yeah.
right? So they have a Java lab management system, but it's not very flexible. And so we actually leveraged the University of Pennsylvania's lab management application in Mendix, and we brought it over to our needs. So we're actually making some changes to that application now to reflect kind of our processes. But the lab director there, who is a PhD research scientist, is also looking at Mendix as a whole for the laboratory. So they have lots of different processes to control security mechanisms within the building through a mobile application. And he also wants his lab managers to really be more innovative and start to create some applications on their own.
Yeah, yeah. And how about the scientific process itself? Is it being used, are Mendix apps being used in the research itself?
So not in the research itself, right? At MIT, you have a lot of custom-built applications just for the sole purposes of finding out, is it even possible, right? Once they find out it's possible, they turn over the work to somebody else who can implement it.
Okay. So if you count everything, how many apps have you made so far?
So right now we're at 15 applications and adding, I think, like 16, 17, 18 within the next few weeks.
Within the next few, from now?
Yeah. So we're working with a lot of different departments at MIT, between general counsel, the nano laboratory. We work with the artificial intelligence laboratory on a few projects as well. So we have about 15 applications all built within a year and a half.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Would you say this helps innovation at MIT in any way?
Yeah, to a certain degree it does, right? I think it helps the academic departments to think less and less about all the administrative stuff that they have to do and more focused on the research. And before, I think Derek mentioned it today, bringing ideas to technology. Everybody had a lot of ideas and no way to implement them. And so now that people are seeing the success for the Mendix platform, so like that agreements application that I mentioned earlier, that's probably turned into 4 different applications from other areas within MIT, because now they see that the ideas that they have can actually be translated into an application from the IT department.
Yeah, yeah. What would you say are the biggest advantages of Mendix?
So I, was trained as a software developer, right? And at the start of every software development project, we argued about what technology we're going to use, what frameworks we're going to use, how you're going to do it. And to a certain degree, Mendix kind of takes some of that out of the conversation, and we can focus specifically on building what the customer wants, right? To me, that's the biggest advantage to Mendix, is focus on what we're trying to do, not the technology behind it.
Yeah, right. Let me put it this way. How many people are working with Mendix hands-on?
Hands-on, we probably have, it's probably only like 12 people.
12 people.
Right? I mean, so that's actual development.
Yeah.
We actually are doing a lot more with users now because we're able to have Agile Sprints and have them participate in the discussion in the project, right? So we meet with, depending on the project, but we have 1 week or 2 week sprints in which people from the community participate, and they participate because they can actually see a result, not just to show up for a meeting. And so we've even, built things during the meetings for them. My favorite thing to do was actually to not tell them we did something and wait till the end of the meeting, drop it on them, and they kind of walk out amazed, which keeps them coming back.
Yeah, so that's an example of one of the things I heard about Mendix, that not just regular developers can use it and understand it and take part in the development process, but people from outside can do the same.
So I think it still takes a special kind of person, somebody who has kind of a technology bent, a little bit, a little
Yeah.
bit of a technology background. You don't have to be a professional IT person, but you need to understand kind of core concepts.
Yeah.
It is becoming easier for users to translate kind of what they see into
Yeah.
what they want you to
Yeah,
do.
yeah. But you have a lot of those. I mean, people with technology background
Yes.
at MIT.
Yes, we do.
Do you ever do you
Only a
ever
little bit.
encounter customers, your customers actually, who say, I can do a better job at that?
So within the
They don't think
computer
you're too
science department,
Yeah.
that is absolutely true, right? I mean, when you have a lot of people who have, created artificial intelligence, created the language that you're using, you get a lot of that,
Yeah.
right?
Is that a problem, or is it?
So I think it's only, in academia, the debate is like half the fun, right?
I suppose.
So, we can start a conversation just about anything, and at the end of it, they're like, okay, go build the application. It sounds perfectly fine, and people have no qualms about using something
Yeah.
because it's not built on a core technology.
Yeah. So how about the learning curve for your people?
So, we've gone to kind of like the 3-day Mendix training for a few folks, but really learning is using the application platform, right? And kind of figuring out some of the quirks, what you should do, how you should do it. And we've worked really closely with Mendix and one of our consulting partners to really figure that out and develop a good user experience, not only for the developers, but for the customers as well. So I would say out of all the things that I've learned, Mendix definitely is a pretty decent learning curve.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Does using Mendix have an influence on the organization itself? Does it change the organization?
It definitely does when you see, I'll go to kind of project portfolio meetings and say, we're releasing this application, next week. And you see, some of the more traditional waterfall applications, they stay on the list forever, right? Stay on the list for the next year. And, we're done in 2 or 3 months. That actually happened probably, I'd say about 3 weeks ago. Went into a meeting, they said, we have a technology licensing office application, which handles all of invention patents and monetary resources associated with inventions at MIT. And we converted everything from paper to electronic via Mendix. So we deployed the application. I actually had another release that would include a lot more functionality, and they said, this application, you guys have been working on it for 4 months. What are we doing with that? And I was like, oh no, it's already in production. We're actually just adding functionality now. So it's definitely great to kind of see that we're pushing things out at a rapid pace.
Yeah, yeah. We started mentioning this 2020 vision.
Yes.
Will it even take until 2020 to make it all a reality?
Well, considering it's still 2016,
Yeah.
it'll take till 2020.
Okay.
Right? But I think what we're seeing nowadays is, through the use of Mendix and other cloud platforms that we have, is that we can actually, do things a lot faster. And that was one of the hallmarks from kind of our end of the year discussion this year was, we pushed out so many more things than we actually thought we could. So, and the customers are seeing that and coming to us with more ideas. And so just that part of it, enabling innovation, we've hit that in the application development arena.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Could you mention 1 or 2 ideas that customers come up to you with?
Sure. So like our brain and cognitive sciences department at MIT, currently they probably have 50 like homegrown applications that they're looking to us to kind of create a more cohesive experience for them, right?
So stuff they made themselves?
Yes.
Maybe
so
in
they
a
made them
different
themselves.
programming language?
Databases, it's at least 6 or 7 different programming languages and platforms.
So they come up to you and ask you, can you do a better job at this?
Yes, and they actually seen it, right? Because they were a part of some of the other projects that that we've had. And so that's why I can have that conversation with them to kind of bring it all together and say, okay, what do you really want? And we can kind of work through it, and you can see it and have it in your hands right away.
Does that mean a bigger workload for you?
It does, but surprisingly, I have an application team lead, and I have 5 developers. We've been able to handle it all, and I can tell you, we have 50 people in our kind of traditional software development team, and they're doing 2 and 3 projects a year.
Yeah, yeah, okay. If you sum up, what does Mendix bring for you?
So to me, it just brings to me simpleness, right? I can get the customers what they want, kind of how they want it, without having a lengthy discussion around how we're going to achieve it, what technologies we're going to use, how we're going to source it, can we even do it, right? I know we can do it. The minute they come to me, I can kind of listen to them and go, we'll start meeting next week, right?
Yeah.
And so it brings that peace of mind to everybody else, and I see that it's working because you have just, again, more and more people coming to us. We're starting to integrate a lot more with the enterprise systems around MIT. I mentioned integration with SAP.
Yeah.
We're doing it with our education systems, our grant management system, again, using REST APIs, using OData, and then even on the business intelligence front, we're exposing data as OData from Mendix applications and using, software like Tableau to create visualizations off of the data that we have. The IT department, we're using that for portfolio management for all our projects now.
Okay. Do you understand correctly that Mendix enables you to reuse old data better?
Yes, it does. So there's probably like 3 applications all that communicate with each other to transfer data between applications,
Yeah.
and using OData as kind of a way to, allow REST services to be consumed. A lot of companies and software are moving towards OData as well, so it's kind of, works very well together.
Yeah. Okay. So this is your department, IT department at MIT.
Yep.
Will more departments of MIT start using Mendix now? How does that work?
I would say the answer is yes. We already have 3 different departments using Mendix. MIT Sloan is using that. I mentioned the Nano Laboratory is going to adopt this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the registrar's office, right? The people who manage the student systems, they have a few people who have learned Mendix and are starting to build some applications on it.
So it's going all the way through the organization.
Yeah, I mean, I would anticipate by the end of our next fiscal year, which MIT is July to June, we'll probably be close to double the applications that we have, which, that's kind of that acceleration of pace, to see it grow exponentially.
As well. What are you going to use it for next? What are the future plans?
So I mentioned brain and cognitive sciences. We actually have, as part of my other group, the data science group, we're creating a front end for our big data hub, right, which runs on Amazon Web Services, but we need an application to kind of front that and expose that to users so that they can search for data sources around MIT. So we're going to use Mendix as a platform to kind of build that out and expose all of that data across MIT.
Beautiful. Okay. That's about what I have to ask, but we have a lot of people here. Let's see how much time we have left. About a quarter of an hour, I guess. Who in this room would like to ask a question to Olu Brown of MIT?
I'm Servan Populiers. My question, you mentioned you have SAP systems and other systems you connect to Mendix. How do you get those departments to meet up with the speed of the Mendix teams?
Sure. That was a bit of a struggle at first, and I think that's kind of what, when we first started using Mendix, was a little bit of a barrier. We wanted to integrate with the student systems and with our core like people directory, but the APIs weren't there yet. And so that first probably 6 months of using Mendix was kind of slowed by that, but as we started building applications and they could see what we actually providing, now we're driving a lot of the API integration across all of these systems. So, it's not easy, but I try to get ahead of the curve, talk to those folks beforehand, and really build on top of things they may already be doing. So we can use REST APIs, but like with SAP, we can use their RFCs. We're also doing database integration if necessary, right? If those APIs don't exist. No easy answer to that.
What's the main hurdle? What's the main issue that if you had to pinpoint, like the main problem you had when introducing Mendix? What would that be?
So I think there were a few. I think a gentleman over here pointed out one, being able to do system integration across systems. I would say also just getting people to kind of recognize the power of Mendix, right? I was a traditional software developer. I've even used Visual Basic in the past, not happy. But if you had asked me to kind of switch to an application platform, I would have told you to go walk the other way, right? And so getting kind of traditional software developers to really understand why they should use something like Mendix versus the technology that they're used to, and it's most of the time it's because they love the technology that they use, right? And they don't want to give up, that power, and and using Mendix to a certain degree, you kind of let go, right? And I will say for me, I've let go, right? Because being a manager now, I'm more interested in the outcome and less in the journey, how you get there. So I'm always pounding people to make sure that we're getting solutions, not into just a pure development discussion. So that's definitely, I would say, like a second hurdle. And then the third is, understanding what Mendix is good for, right? We're not trying to replace our core enterprise systems with Mendix, right? We're doing a lot of the business process stuff that happens outside of those systems, right? Things that people are doing manually or with homegrown applications. Mendix is actually a perfect fit for that, right? So all of the applications that I kind of discussed today all play in that arena. The technology licensing system is kind of ancillary to their core case management system. Some of the financial agreements, that's around SAP. The forms, that's around our student system. And so I think that kind of helps to alleviate some of the pressure into what we're doing, what we're not doing.
Okay, so that's conscious decisions about what you use for what, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, there was a question here at the front. Would you please stand up and tell us your name and then ask a question?
Yeah, my name is Bert van der Schelde. I also work with Mendix.
Okay.
Thank you, Olu, for a very clear explanation. And you're a strong supporter. That was quite clear. I do have two questions. One is a very easy one, I think, for you to answer. The first one is about the governance. Listening to everything you said about Mendix and the way you work within MIT, it looks like the governance has become much more simpler compared to the other way. So the first question you already answered.
Sure.
The second question I have for you is about value for money. How do you see the value for money that Mendix platform is delivering if you compare it also to other platforms you're working towards? And maybe even more specific, how challenging is the pricing structure, or are you very relaxed on that? Can you say something about that?
Sure. So I'm a pretty relaxed guy, so I like easy solutions over difficult solutions, right? So as far as just kind of value, I look at Mendix, MIT is not driven by the bottom line, or at least that's their official stance. They actually are. But
you do have to mind the money, I suppose.
yes, you do have to mind the money, or you'll have difficult conversations with the MIT executive board. But the value that I see happening across MIT is you make the academic departments happy, you're golden, right? Because the academic departments run the university. And when they don't get something that they need, they're very vocal about it. And so that's driven down, I would say, the background noise when you're able to deliver solutions. From a monetary perspective, I look at Mendix pricing structure, delivering by like application nodes and the number of users, how long the projects take. still significantly less than, spending 9 months on a PHP project with 4 people and not delivering anything, right? So it's not, I would say this is probably a little bit more subjective. I haven't run any numbers, but I definitely, I see software projects come through all the time, and they want 2 developers and a business analyst, and it's going to take a year, and it's going to cost us $600,000. I definitely know I can beat that if I did the same thing at Mendix.
Okay, right. Next question, please. If you would state your name. Thank you very much.
Hi, my name is Heidi Rutten. I work for KPN.
Okay.
And I serve customers, university customers. And they are looking for new opportunities to do scientific research.
Sure.
And I was wondering if you're using Mendix for scientific research, big data, for example.
Yeah, so as I manage a data science team, I'll tell you that we're actually now not using Mendix to at least analyze any big data, right? We're using kind of the traditional methods with like Python and R to develop algorithms for big data. And that's what data scientists want to do anyway, right? So again, I'm simple, do what makes you most effective. I think I mentioned that we are using Mendix to kind of front our big data hub, which is basically a collection of data around MIT that we're making available to the entire kind of academic population. So in a roundabout way, yes, we're using Mendix as just kind of the front end for how people access that data. On the research side of the house, it's very tough. I mean, a lot of times, like I mentioned before, I wouldn't say the research is necessarily throwaway, but they're not trying to operationalize it. They're just trying to use whatever tool that they can to get to the research results that they need. And in some cases, they need specialized software, where I don't think Mendix probably plays as well there. In other cases, if they have something pretty basic that they want to create, I'm all ears, right? That's why we're doing some work with the Nano Laboratory.
Is it true that scientists mostly are a bit of their own mind as far as their tools are concerned?
They are, and as an MIT grad, when you're talking to, some of the, finest minds in the world, they think they can apply their intellect to anything, right?
And are they right?
No, they are not right.
Okay, that's clear then. Next question.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, next question, please. At the front here. There you go.
My name is Clyde. I'm with Mendix.
Okay.
My question is Mendix also used in MIT to teach students how to build software? And if not, would that be a viable option?
So I guess the short answer is no right now. We did work with Daniela Keiko from Mendix, and she actually even had a class session in between our fall and spring semesters, where we had students and people from around the MIT community come to the session to learn about Mendix and to play with it hands-on. So there's an opportunity there for students to learn some of that stuff. I have a few interns this year from MIT, and they'll be helping us with some of the Mendix application development. So I think the opportunity is there, and yes, I'd leverage it if possible. I don't know. It's so I learned computer science on very esoteric technologies, things that you would never use in the real world, and for some reason MIT just likes making it harder on students that way.
But would you say, with your experience and knowledge, is any other programming language relevant anymore?
So I would say Python is definitely, a relevant language. Java, C#, PHP, a lot of people still developing those, but you can see more and more the frameworks that are built on top of it are really where it's at, not the programming language itself. Yeah. Python is probably unique more because it's big in the data analysis circles, so you can do lots of different things. But definitely the move towards kind of cloud platforms for software development is definitely present.
Yeah, sure. Next. question. Somebody pointing that way? No? I can see the audience not too well. I don't see any hands anymore.
No other questions? Come on.
Oh, one more at the front. Thank you, front. You're doing a good job.
You're welcome. My name is Nijza Francisca. I work at MAVIM. And besides that, I'm a PhD student at the University of Maastricht.
Okay.
I was wondering if you're building an app for which faculty that needs one, how do you go through the process so that you know that the result is really what they need?
Sure. So, I mean, I think it always starts off with a conversation, right? Really, I sit down with them, or my application lead sits down with them to really understand what they're trying to achieve, right? And I can usually kind of categorize it in my brain as like, you know, this is something that I could do well with Mendix. I need to point them somewhere else. And once I kind of move to the Mendix side of the needle, you know, I really, like, let's just start the project up, right? So I'll bring in a developer or two with an app lead to really just start, right? Starting is always the best thing, and showing them how easy Mendix is, how they'll interact with us. You know, we try to make sure we're delivering a lot of function without a lot of form, right? And that's, to me, how you really start some of this stuff. Don't try to make it a traditional project. We got to get a PM. I got to start gathering requirements. Let's just kind of talk it through, walk it through. And Mendix is pretty amenable to, you know, kind of rapidly creating something that they can actually see.
All right. We have time for one more closing question, all the way at the back this time. Let me walk up to you. Please say who you are and ask a question. Thank you.
So, Marshall Reed from UCLA, all the way in Los Angeles, California.
I thought we said no questions for you.
I forgot that. I forgot that order, sorry. But I did want to ask you, when you're building these applications, what percentage of the free modules versus the pay-for modules have you been using?
So for the most part, we've been using the free modules. We've actually probably worked with Mendix to develop a few of the modules ourselves. So, you know, MIT has their own custom single sign-on solution. So we worked with Mendix to kind of develop those modules. We're using a modified version of the Amazon S3 module for document storage within our applications. So more on the free side than the pay side. But, you know, if there's something out there that I can pay for that's going to give tremendous benefits to the MIT community, then we'll do that too, right? I'm not interested in developing something custom just because.
Okay, I guess that's about it. I want to thank you very much for being present in such great numbers. We'll have one more customer success session after this one at 4:15. We'll be talking to various customers of Mendix who work in the Internet of Things. So if you like that, be present there in about 15 minutes. And for now, thank you very much, Olu Brown of
Thank you,
MIT.
Herbert.